Do you know what fixed and variable costs are? They can help you determine whether or not a job is worth it for you to do. What do I mean? So a fixed cost is a cost you pay all the time. The cost generally stays the same, but it's something that you need to make your business work. Yes, you as a creator, photographer, graphic designer, illustrator are a business. So for a graphic designer, an illustrator might be an Apple Pencil and an iPad, right? For a photographer, it might be gas, your car payment. For everyone, it's your phone, your internet. But a variable cost might be the hard drives for a photographer to put the RAWs in to send to the client. Or maybe you need faster broadband internet. Like a variable cost is something that you generally use for a specific job. Now, many jobs might have the same variable costs, but primarily you have to answer this question. Does this job pay for the variable costs? If not, it's probably a bad idea, especially if it doesn't help you scale toward your business goals. So how do you decide these things? So I know it's difficult to think about, but for a photographer, I'm gonna talk about me, for example, every job I need a certain kind of camera. So when I'm doing BTS stuff for television, I need a mirrorless camera, which when I'm doing things for like a billboard, like I've done billboards before, and I usually use a 5D Mark III, I usually use a 5D Mark IV, and they might say, oh no, the output for that's not big enough for a billboard. So I've had to rent cameras in the past. So obviously they pay for that. So those are clearer. But there's times when you're doing a job, like you're taking headshots or whatever it is, and you're trying to figure out, is this worth it? The reason when you want to do these expenses is after a year, 2, 3 years of working, you can say to yourself, I want to start focusing on things that give me this margin of profit so that I can save up enough money to make whatever purchase, whatever I need to do. And you use that math from your fixed and variable costs to say, if I have a choice between photographing an event, photographing portraits, working for the New York Times, which one of these things will pay me the most for the least amount of my time? So let's take a camera, for example. Let's say the 5D Mark IV costs $3,000. Now, I wasn't getting paid $3,000 for any job for a long time. So obviously I'm not going to get the full price of the camera each time, and I also have to account for my travel, I have to account for the hard drives, my time, but let's just go with the cost for now. Let's take what we believe is a life cycle for the Mark IV. I've had mine since 2018, so let's say 6 years. That means that each year you need to make at least $500 that's just for the cost of that camera. So if you only do 2 jobs a year, and you bought this camera and people are paying you $100, you're starting to see that it may not work. Now let's add in our internet, let's add in our car, and let's just track the miles for that or what percentage of the driving you can do for work. And as you start to do it, you generally get, even for first-time photographers, first-time illustrators, whatever, you're gonna see that your costs are probably gonna end up at least $4,000 to $5,000. Now you're not gonna immediately make that, but it's important for you to understand that about each year, it's costing you that much, let alone your time. Now your time gets more valuable as you get better. Joshua Kissi once said, you're not paying me just something quickly, you're paying me for my expertise to learn all this time to do it this quickly. So remember, your time is valuable. But even at minimum wage, right? Let's say that you work, let's say it's the $4,000, you do 6 jobs for the year. So the 6 jobs, they take 3 days each. Something to point out here is that your day rate, although you're getting paid for the day, really is a rate that should be paying you for the course of 2 or 3 days because you're doing research, photo scouting, research if you're illustrating, pre-sketches, things like that. So now you'll see that this price starts to go up and up and up. Over time, as you work, you usually start out in the red, which means your profits are less than 0, they're negative. But over time you get into the black. And that's why here it's important to keep track of your expenses. I'm gonna provide a little spreadsheet in the downloads below that you can use to just keep track of your expenses, and you can refer back to it and say, what did I make from that job? Or, like in the case of some things I've made short films before that cost me money. Is this effective in advertising my work in the future? For you to be able to answer what your opportunity cost is, you have to understand your expenses. This is very unsexy, but it really starts with this. So make a list of all your fixed costs and your variable costs. Figure out what things you can charge a client directly for. So you can say, hey, for me to give you the most secure version of the files, we should buy a hard drive. Solid state costs $120. Can you bring your own? Or, hey, these are my costs for travel. So that way when someone says, why does this cost $500? You can say, okay, so I'm doing 4 hours of my time, and even at, let's say $25 an hour, that's $100. Let's just say, of photographing. Then, let's say you edit for another 4, probably closer to 8. Usually the math is like every hour you shoot, it's 2 hours of editing. So even if you did that, once again at 25, that's at $200. Now you're at $300. Then we did that math to know that each year you need to make $500 for your camera. You do 5 jobs a year, so $100 for your camera. Now we're at $400. We only have $100 left. That's not accounting for lenses or any of those things. This isn't for you to start an argument with any client. It's for you to explain my expenses are such. And so for me to do this thing, it requires that I do the following. Sometimes it helps to do line items, but my advice to you is always know what your baseline is. So like, I get rid of all my eating out, I get rid of all that stuff, and just my business costs. And if you can't say I can make most of this within 5 to 10 jobs for the year, you need to reduce your costs or you need to charge more money. It's not super fun to say that, but if you can when someone reaches out, you can say, these are my prices. And if you really want to work with them and ask why they're so high, you can say, this is how I calculated my costs. And for me to turn a profit with my time, this is what I want to do. And usually people respect that. If they still nickel and dime you, I would tell you, if you can avoid it, don't make them your client. But doing these expenses, this very boring line item, it will help you then understand, oh, no. If I only get paid this much, maybe they can only pay me $500. I need to shrink the number of hours I photograph to 2 instead of 4 and edit from 8 to 4. So that I can make sure it's still profitable for me and I can still enjoy things with my family, my friends, or just have time to myself. Understanding what things cost will then help you make better decisions about what to do. So, money moves. Hopefully this is helpful. If it's not, or if it is, but you have more questions, feel free to drop comments below. Let me know. I'm here to help you. It's never a bad idea to ask a good question. Love you.